What's the quote from Layer Cake, which is actually the best alpha you could probably get? Because it's actually related to a lot of stuff we're talking about careers. Let me see. Okay, here it is, people. This is the answer to every question on the AMA we've already had. So I take back every previous answer about fire, about the best experience, about founder market fit. Here it is. This is my answer to everything in every future AMA question. You're born, you take shit. You get out in the world, you take more shit. You climb a little higher, you take less shit. Till one day you're in the rarefied atmosphere and you forgot what shit even looks like. There you go.
Jeez,
Welcome to
look
the
at
layer
that.
cake, son.
Yeah, welcome to the
Put
layer
that
cake.
on a quote Instagram page, mate. That is
Dude,
beautiful.
there you go.
Welcome to another episode of Not Investment Advice. We got Jack Butcher, Bilal Zaidi, Trung Phan. Trung, where are you this week, mate? You changed locations.
Space.
Yeah, space. Yeah, we go. Well, obviously the inside joke here is we do have to once in a while do a pre-recorded episode when we can't make it. My family's in town, so I needed to record 2 in 1 week. So we're going double
we
here.
haven't missed, right? We haven't missed. We are delivering for the listeners.
There we go.
We're delivering for you guys.
This is an AMA episode this week, so thanks again to everyone who submitted questions in the Telegram group. The link to that group is in the show notes below if you're not already in there. If you ever want to submit a question, you should do it there. Boys, let's just get straight into it. Kalos asked your thoughts about FIRE. That is financial independence, retire early. I assume that's what you're talking about, not FIRE, the actual fire. So
I think fire was a good invention. Important for humans to cook and not spend so much energy chewing on raw meat so they can get the calories without spending so much calories.
Trung actually gave a real answer. I love that.
Yeah. So fire, people, for those that don't know, the energy density increased substantially for humans.
The most Trung answer, which is actually very true and beautifully put.
So think about how much energy you're expending chewing on meat, people. Think about that. Okay.
What a waste of time.
Yeah.
But yeah, all right. So yeah, you guys obviously have heard of fire. I take it, yeah, and you know about it. This
is my answer.
Yeah, go on.
This is Trung Phan's answer. So it is a big community. It's about people that want to save money.
Very big on Reddit.
Yeah, very big on Reddit. And they save money, try to optimize their life around saving money for some goal, like I'll retire at 35 or I'll retire at 40. Now, I've seen some extremely successful people do this, but you've also probably seen some pretty viral stories recently of people being like, I'm going to find some. I don't know if Rafa, if you could pull some of these up, I'll find them and shoot them over to you. But it's something along the lines of, and I've seen multiple of these, it's like, hey, I spent the past decade, my 20s, trying to optimize my life around retiring at 30. I did nothing in my 20s and I fucking regret it. Listen, that's extreme.
Yeah.
But that's what it feels like. That's what this shit feels like. And the greatest advice that anyone ever gave me, especially my good friend Eric, Eric Kashoni, shout out to you. Eric left a Wall Street job to go work, to live in Vietnam, is where I met him. And when somebody asked him, he's like, man, like, you know, why'd you come to Vietnam? He's like, well, when I got out of university, I thought that I wanted to work hard for 20 years and then retire. But then I realized I could just move to Vietnam and get my foot massages every single day and like live my life. But like literally, no, I don't mean like a euphemism, like, oh, foot massage like something else. He literally was getting a foot massage.
sorry.
Yo, I didn't say that. This dude was literally at 11 a.m. This is not like an extreme thing. It's like it was next to like the biggest office building in Saigon. There's a foot massage. You literally sit in a chair and you have your laptop and you're working while you get an hour-long foot massage. He's like, why'd I have to wait till I'm 30, right? And here's another thing I'll say. Sorry for taking out all the oxygen from this answer.
No, this is great. Go for it.
There's so Billy Oppenheimer, shout out. I don't know if Billy listens to this podcast, actually. He does Ryan Holiday's newsletter. Oh, no. He's Ryan Holiday's research assistant. So Ryan Holiday's a beast. So if you're working for Ryan Holiday, you're an animal. So Billy has an awesome newsletter. It's called 6 at 6 on Sunday. And it's he gives 6 anecdotes about one theme. And last week, he had an anecdote about Matt Damon. Matt Damon, for people who don't know, went to Harvard. Super smart guy, obviously. He wanted to be an actor, wanted to be a director. So they wrote the screenplay for Good Will Hunting. He won Best Original Screenplay for Good Will Hunting in 1998. which is mind blowing. This is early 20s. Him and Ben Affleck co-wrote
One
that.
of my favorite films. Incredible film.
Unbelievable, right? The guy wrote it, freaking went to Harvard, smart guy. But the TLDR is, they asked him afterwards, he was reflecting on winning the Oscar. And then he didn't really feel anything. He's like, he thought that when he's trying to get up in the game, that winning this would just like be the most credible thing. You draft on the energy for the rest of your life. But then he won it. And like nothing really changed afterwards. Like opportunities changed, but like his personal feeling, it changed, but then it kind of just went away. Like we all know that your baseline always comes back. And this is what his reflection, which is so profound. He goes, if I had won that Oscar at 80 and I spent my 60 years trying to get that Oscar, I would have been so sad. Because like I would have spent 60 years trying to hunt that down, and that feeling just dissipates. It's like, I'm so glad I won it at that time to realize it just wasn't that big of a deal. I think that's what's happening to these fired people. They're saving for some point in time and just forgetting just to live your life, right? And so that's my takeaway.
Yeah, well put. Jack, any thought? I have some thoughts, but
how are we going to top that? How are we going to top that, man? Beautiful. That was perfect.
All right, but
yeah, I agree. I think everybody goes through that. Not everybody, but a lot of people go through that phase of like, if only I could get to this point, then everything's going to be good. I'm going to wake up every day. And a lot of the contrast there is that is the thing that you're focusing on that's giving you this drive or giving you this purpose or making you get out of bed and work on stuff. And that's really the thing that you're chasing after, not the situation that engineers. So I had this, I went to this meetup in New York once, and there's this guy talking about basically the concept of work and how people confuse the thing they're working on for the feeling you get from working on the thing. Like a lot of people just like solving problems, right? Or they like helping people, or they like, there's very few, like, if you boil it down, what you're doing is waking up every day to work on a new problem. That's like the most intoxicating and sustainable thing. And once you get to the resolution of the problem, you're just like, oh, I want something else to do. It's just your innate desire to do that. And if you're making significant sacrifices in pursuit of that solution, like resolution, then you look back after 10 years and you're like, oh, now I just have to find something else to do. I don't think I've been fortunate enough to get into a situation where I could not do something for a long period of time. And it's the last thing on earth I want to do. Like you get to that point, you're just like, I've actually been seeing people on Twitter talk about this, like people who have had massive like liquidity events, made shitloads of money, literally never have to work again. And they panic more about money now than they ever used to. There's this Nassim Taleb quote. It said, I think it's in Anti-Fragile, but it's like, when you have more to lose, you like live more nervously. Like a lot of people talk about this, like they're way happier when they're just like grinding it out, spending the money they make, put a little bit away, whatever. Don't be a moron about it. But like if you're you're spending your whole life trying to optimize for a make-believe scenario, I don't know, you almost never get there, or you're like concentrating on the wrong thing. You feel like you wasted time. It's a hard thing to answer, but I looked at that once. I'm like, I'm not the type of person that could ever do that. Like I'm too erratic to sustain something like that. Or even this idea that circumstances will stay the same for the 50 years you've set yourself up for. That's bullshit too, right?
Yeah, that the rules. Yeah, because the summary of the FIRE movement, and I think you both made a perfect point there, but the summary of how it works is earn more than you spend. So there's two parts of that equation: earn more money, reduce your spend. And it just depends on what side of the coin you are, because that's just the generic personal finance advice too, right? Like the
Dave
more
Ramsey
useful
guy.
Yeah, exactly. But there's different versions of that. There's like the Ramit Sethi vibe, which he wrote, I Will Teach You to Be Rich. Actually very helpful book for a lot of people who have no idea about general personal finance. But the summary nowadays is earn more, reduce your cost, and then keep investing in index funds, essentially, rent if you can't afford to buy, all those sorts of things. You can go into details, and I think sometimes the details are very important, but the most important part of that to me has always been, how can I increase my income and also make sure I'm not over living, like spending money on things I don't actually need. And that's actually where a lot of people really mess up. It's like they've gone through this phase where they're essentially buying stuff to impress people they don't really care about. And so I luckily got that out of my system when I was at 18. And then after that, I was like, oh, it doesn't bring me any incremental happiness, essentially. And so I was very lucky that while I didn't even have that much money, I was able to kind of buy a few pairs of sneakers or trainers and a Stone Island jacket like a G and feel like, okay, all right, I impressed my friends.
The ROI on it then. Yeah, it's huge.
Flexing on them.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And also I was selling clothes, so I had to feel like I was walking the walk.
That was an expense, my friend.
It was an expense, yeah, exactly.
You're writing that off on the taxes.
Exactly. But the only thing I'd add, I kind of agreed with what Trung said earlier, but the only nuance I'd say is that it has brought a lot of good to a lot of people in the same way.
Yes.
Like, someone who doesn't know anything about money or personal finance, when they start going down that rabbit hole, it can really help them organize their life a bit, because money is really important for a lot of people to bring stability, but it's not the end goal. It's not like gonna make you happy. And there's two quotes I'll share here, which I think are really helpful. Naval's one, I think this is from Naval. So if you can't be happy with a coffee, you won't be happy on a yacht. That one, I think, kind of like stuck with me.
That might be
for a while.
Gandhi, actually. I think that's Gandhi.
Oh, okay. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And this is another one, which I don't know who it's from, but this kind of resonates. When I was 20, I wanted to be a millionaire. Now I'm a millionaire. I want to be 20. And that is kind of, that's a pretty good one too, because you're basically like, without going to everyone's personal situations, like even on my small scale, I'm thinking as an 18-year-old, 20-year-old, I'm like, I'm going to be rich one day. I'm going to make a business. I'm going to earn lots of money. And then when you get to a certain level of financial stability, you're like, okay, is this what I was really waiting for? And like, it kind of like what you said with Matt Damon. You're like, okay, I've worked for this Oscar or whatever it was, and now I've got here. It's like, okay, well, did that even mean anything? And I think the most interesting people I've kind of attached myself to from Creator Lab, the people that I've interviewed there, are the ones that kind of went beyond that level. They realized, it wasn't just a liquidity event. It was like figuring out what they actually like doing. So I would consider myself to be someone who does follow some of the FIRE principles. So I do think there's a lot of good there. But my version of that has been, I don't care. I don't hate my work. So I don't want to like just do something for 10 years to maximize my income so I can then retire, in air quotes. Like what I kind of have now is been the hybrid. Like for the last 5 years, I work like way less than a full-time job, like hours wise, and I earn a similar amount of money, but I do all the things I want to do. So to me, my version of that was freedom, as time freedom. And doing like, so for example, doing this podcast, I get a lot of like good feeling out of doing it every week. It's nothing to do with the money. It's just, it makes my week better. It's fun to hang out.
Because there is none.
There is no money. Exactly. It actually costs us money, but yeah.
Wait, Bilal. Let me circle. Bilal's like, I'm not doing this for the money. He's like, yeah, dude, we know.
Yeah, we know.
If we were truly proponents of the FIRE podcast, you wouldn't be asked the FIRE movement. You wouldn't be able to ask this question because we wouldn't be doing this podcast.
That's true. Exactly.
Hold on, Bilal. Let me be fair to the FIRE movement, because if you take the extreme of anything, you're gonna be able to shit on them, right? Like Jack's extreme of health and fitness, like he's talked about, right? Like measuring your broccoli. Yeah, that's dumb. But going to 50% principles, knowing that here's what my macros should look like broadly, that's positive. I agree. I really like the nuance you brought in. There's like understanding the basics of FIRE is very beneficial. But where it goes wrong, and again, exactly as you said, so thank you for adding to it. It was like, if you're doing a job you hate to do that, that's wrong. You should not be doing that.
Yeah, you want to spend your time doing things you enjoy doing. And maybe that, and actually, again, I'm not trying to just plug my own Creator Lab stuff, but Zaid, who I had on Creator Lab last episode, we talked about him moving from a full-time civil engineering job to a part-time civil engineering job to now do his creative stuff on the and that was actually a really good example, because a lot of people do this either or approach. And it's actually closer to what I've done really as well. It's like, I like Creator Lab. I like doing NA. I like not making money from this, but still happy to do it. But there's a difference when I actually went a few months doing it full-time Creator Lab essentially for like, I think it was 2019. I did it for a few months. I went from making $100,000 a year to zero. Or I made like a few thousand from Creator Lab sponsorships or something. But man, that feeling was not the right feeling for me. I became so defensive. I was like, I wasn't on the attacking foot, which is what I need to be doing. And after like basically doing now what I've been doing for the last few years, I was able to put it in its place and say, I actually really like doing this for different reasons. It doesn't have to be my be all and end all where I have to make 100 grand a year from this. Otherwise it's not worth my time. And it's just up to everyone to figure out what that mix is. And so I think those principles are good. Understanding things we all know about like compound interest and like, you know, making sure you earn more than you spend. It's the same with like health. It's like once you internalize calories in, calories out, you'll be able to maintain not being a fat bastard basically, right? Because you're able to say, oh, I understood that my needs were not being met, so I was eating all this crazy food. Now I'm able just to add in some exercise and I balance it out. It's the same equation for money. You have to keep earning more than you spend and invest difference. Now, like you said, so much of that is out of your control. I do think it's very simplistic to think index funds are going to always give you 8% or 12% like we've had in the last few years. That could be that we've had a 30, 40, 50 year cycle and things change. So that's why I think it's even more important to realize it's not that working is a bad thing. It's about finding things that you enjoy doing and defining what is enough. And making sure you don't go over that amount as well is important. So I think the last one I say is our boy George Mack had a little thread on this, 11 Thoughts on Money. And I thought this was the best way to put it. A rich man is anyone who earns more than his wife's sister's husband. Rory Sutherland. That is so funny because that is basically kind of summarizes some of the things. That feeling of being rich is really about like your comparison. And if I compare what I've earned in my life to all my friends from high school, I way out earned all of them. If I compare it to every single person I've met on my podcast, I'm a poor man. You know what I mean? So it's just dependent on how you frame things in your head. And so I would say the over focus on like a time one day where I'm going to be able to retire is overkill. But being able to be financially free is obviously a very positive thing. So yeah, that's my thoughts on it. Anything else on that, boys, before we move on to another topic? That was good beautiful. Though. Great question, Kalos, if I'm saying your name right. Chris Twining said, if each of you was able to work with or co-create with /memify for social media purposes a brand, what would the brand be and why? Great question. Very, very cool question. So essentially a brand you could co-create with. I mean, yeah, this is you two have a little think about that because that is very good.
How do I say this without being like become an advertiser of NIA? I don't know. That's a really good question. I would frame it like this. I'd want to put my energy around. Okay, here we go. So one reason I did Barely AI was because very similar to the Mr. Beast model. I was like, I didn't necessarily just want to advertise, right? Like I wanted to align something that I actually cared about, and not to dog any of my previous advertisers that have advertised on my newsletter or I've worked with on social. Is like sometimes I didn't even use their product, right? And looking back, I felt that was kind of weird. So I'd want something that I actually did use a ton and aligned with aligned, such a lame word, but man, here, take the background, space. Is there a way to do something with SpaceX? I don't know. I'd probably do something with Starlink, to be honest. I think Starlink is a world-changing type of product. People know how I feel about Elon and the things he's created, and the full 360 of what he's been able to accomplish, the good and the bad, or like the nuanced look at it. But Starlink to me is like, man, that would be something very cool to work with. Not that they would need me. They already got 160 million followers. He can do whatever he wants with that and pump it out at a moment's notice. But I think something like that would be like a stretchy thing. It was like a type of product that I would use. I haven't started using Starlink yet, but I've talked about buying one. Have you either of you guys like thought about getting one? obviously we live in cities, so like the need of it isn't super high. But like,
No, but I just saw actually someone I know just posted they were on a flight this morning where they had Starlink on it, and he said it was
there
really,
you
really
go.
cool. Yeah,
There you go. That's my
game
answer.
changer. Yeah.
I think I would like to put energy behind that because Starlink is the money spigot that will help fund like a Starship. So 20 years we can get to Mars. So there you go.
That's dope. Quick follow-up question before we move to Jack. Honest question here. Elon Musk follows Trung Phan on Twitter. I'm sure you guys have had some sort of chats in the past. So what do you think stops you from doing something like that now? Like, he already follows you. You could be doing that. Permissionless apprentice.
No, I do.
Vibe.
I mean, I do. To answer your question, I do support like any of these SpaceX related ones I engage with. It's just like, here's the question: would I even move the needle? Like, that's the other thing. Maybe things I should partner with isn't a Starlink type thing. It should be something where I can actually move the needle on. Right. So I'd have to think about that.
Think about it.
I'd have to find something. I mean, this is where something like barely, quite literally, is the solution. Is like, barely itself doesn't have 160 million people, right? No, but I'm serious. It's like maybe it is just putting your energy behind those type of things up and coming.
Like that. Okay, great. Jack, you're the brand king of the pod. You've worked with some of the best brands in the world, and you've created, what you mentioned in, I think, either this episode or last episode, I can't remember, about becoming like the best in the world at one thing. You're one of the best creative people in our world. So you probably could do this. If you wanted to work with a brand, you could probably do it. But is there an answer for you? A brand that you would want to co-create with that comes to mind?
There's a lot that I admire. Most of them are in the same realm as Trung's answer. The Musk portfolio. Mainly also because of the attitude of some of that stuff too, right? Working with brands for a long time, you realize that the majority of them, just by nature of the engagement, prevents you from doing anything interesting because it's like run by a committee and all of that stuff. So I'm basically going to give a non-answer and say I'm not interested in doing that at the moment. But the ability to like turn your interests into a brand never been greater. And I feel like the last couple of years I've been trying to do that. Is like, I'm interested in this thing, I'm learning about this, I'll try and make something that isn't just me, that reflects those things or explores those ideas. So we'll see. Like, I'm in a little bit of I'm kind of balancing between two worlds at the moment. I got the old VV stuff, and I've been into these like 2 NFT collections this year. So yeah, I can't really imagine doing anything but that right now. So that's why I'm struggling to give a good answer.
No, I think this is a great answer. I'm changing my answer. I don't want to work with any brands. I want to work with myself and people I want to work with. That's it.
That post, baby.
No. I mean, no, but that was basically Jack's answer. Is like, wait a second, hold on. I'm 99th percentile in what I do. Why am I lending this to another brand when I can just own it? And you've demonstrated that twice now, very successfully over the past couple of years. That's the answer. I admire a lot of brands, but to Jack's point, I'm not going to be able to control 100% A through Z how much of my creative output gets put into it. And what I said earlier about the brands I have worked with in the past and I didn't even use myself, and nothing against them. It's like, there was nothing, there was no feeling from me. So why? Yeah, that's my answer. Is like, I prefer to work on something and lend my energy to partnerships that are very clearly something that I can help or that I create myself. So like Work Week, for example, with the team at Work Week, it's super aligned with what I want to do, and which is why we're partnered. So like, that is a perfect kind of answer. Yeah. It's like, I think that's it. I don't want to stretch. There is no stretch band. I don't want to work with Nike, right? I admire them, but what's Nike can get on me? What am I getting on Nike, right? It's like, it's better for me value-wise to do something on my own from scratch, for them to spend their money elsewhere, right?
Yeah. No, I think that's a fair answer. I guess the essence of the question is less so about if we'd actually do it. It's more like brands that we would admire for those reasons. So I think you guys gave a good answer already. I'll say my one really quickly. It's not, I mean, obviously any of those companies, like you said, like amazing companies. But for me, again, similar to you guys, it's more like what would actually really be exciting for me. And for the last few years, as you know, I'm a massive Arsenal fan. And that would be just a very cool thing for me, because I see some of these videos that I saw. There's a guy who does the videos with the team and stuff. And I was like, man, this guy, what a fucking legend this guy is, that he got that. I mean, that's a dream job for someone who creates content and is a huge Arsenal fan, right? Like, he's there with the team. He's basically going on the pitch with them. He's like feeling the whole thing. He's in the stadium. He's doing everything. And that's one of those only things where you're like, okay, that's not something I could do on my own. And it's something I care about a lot. And it's nothing to do with money. It's nothing to do with even the creative stuff. It's just something you love so much that you would just find it a fun life experience. So that would be kind of my answer. But yeah, great question though. I really like the idea there.
Oh, it made us think. It made us think.
Made us think, exactly. Yeah, we had to take a minute pause there.
I was like, ooh. I'm like, ooh, this is good.
Yeah, I don't know if Rafa edited that out. Maybe it did for retention purposes, but for actual
that pause.
That pause is needed. Okay. All right, Ali asked us, what has been your career high when you felt, fuck yeah, this is incredible? Really good question as well.
This is kind of related to some fire stuff I asked Chad about.
Yeah. Go for it.
I'll give you a perfect example, actually. The Matt Damon one. When I heard that, when I got the contract to option our script, I was in my early 20s, and very similar, mid 20s, sorry. Very similar thing though. I'm like, oh my God, this thing that I'd been wanting to do since I was renting all these Blockbuster films. You know, last week we talked about Blockbuster and DVDs. Oh my God, we did it. We signed it. We got a script. And then like just dissipated. It was gone. There was like no feeling. The movie never got made. And like, that was the most I remember feeling, oh my God, that was amazing. And then it just, it didn't actually turn into something, but B, also just kind of looking back now, who cares? It's like, it's whatever. It's like a coffee table story at this point. And I think the larger thing is, it wraps into the fire answer, is these moments are probably goal related. And I've just completely shifted my life from like, here's this goal. If I'm only happy in life if I achieve it. No, it's like Scott Adams, Dilbert cartoonist, semi-controversial, but he goes systems versus goals, right? It's like you build your life around systems. A system for me is wake up every day, shit post, read and write for 5 hours, right? That's my system. I don't need a goal to be happy. That system is making me happy. It's kind of
either
like
way you won that day, basically. Like whatever happens after that, you did.
Feed the pigs, right?
Yeah.
Feed
the that's it. That's my answer. Is like that was the happiest I've been. Or not the happiest, like one of the most salient memories I had about like this goal that I had, and then just nothing really came of it, and it reset my baseline of what matters more, goals versus system. So that's my answer.
That's a great one. Jack, you've had a lot of different experiences, from the factory floor to working on Ferrari, and then these massive I think we're allowed to say the brand, Ferrari. Yeah, working on all these brands. And now obviously what you've done on your own with Visualize Value, then creating NFTs, one of the biggest ones in the world, all the stuff you've done. So anything coming to mind for you, man? Could be a few as well.
Well, yeah, I think the first big one was the like winning the contract that let me quit my job when I was like working for an agency in New York, and I got the first contract. That was a big one. I was actually in England with Celia at the time. It was like New Year's Eve or close to New Year's Eve, whatever the last day of the year was. And the guy rang me on the phone. It was in a double-decker bus, actually, sitting on the top deck of a double-decker bus. He's like, yeah, we want to go forward with it. And I'd like completely put it out of my mind. I was like, there's no way. Just did this like really massive pitch that I was completely underqualified to deliver on. They're like, yeah, we want to do it. So that was like, you know, have to figure all that out.
It's happening, yeah.
Yeah, and then I think some of the art stuff, like 2021, selling some of the Visualize Value original pieces, that was like a very crazy, just a nutty time, man. Just had our first kid, got into that world, COVID's going on, and that was like a huge
Which one do you remember? Because one of our first podcasts,
probably the first one.
The checks, the verified.
No, this was there was a Michelangelo one. It's like a animated one where it's it's called Chisel, the piece. It says every block of stone has a sculpture inside it. It is the task of the sculpture to discover it. And I like, after I'd learned what an NFT was, like a couple months later, that was the first piece I put out. And just remembering like people actually wanting that was like, fuck, this is mental. That was like totally shifted my worldview again. Those two are big. Yeah. And then this year, the Christie's thing was cool.
Oh,
Very
man.
cool.
That's crazy. Yeah, that's a big, that come up. What about like working with the Naval thing on the book? Was that anything?
That was
I mean,
ace.
obviously different,
That was,
especially
you know
because that kind of kicked off your self-employment stuff.
I think one of the bigger, one of the like more memorable moments was when somebody like that amplifies your stuff on social.
Oh,
like that's like a huge, when you're like, oh man, the person that I've been reading for this long and learning from has seen this thing that I'm making. Like, especially when you're new to those platforms, you have really like no idea that people are actually looking at
reading it. Yeah.
And when like, I think it was the first one, like the first big retweet I ever got was Nassim Taleb. And I just finished all of his books. I did this one piece. I was in Brooklyn, woke up one morning, and the notification tab was just going bang, 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 bang. And I was like, this is mental. Like that was a total, like, that totally, again, blows your, like, you're going from doing these freelance jobs and like trying to figure out how to get somebody to work with you to like, you have this moment of realization that's like, oh, there is something repeatable about this thing. Like there is something here that I've done that I don't need to rely on somebody else to tell me to do something to get this reaction. And that obviously does a ton for just reshaping how you understand agency and opportunity.
I will echo that. I want to echo that because my answer was not sufficient. But Jack, these episodes are great because I'm just listening. I'm just nodding. Yeah. So like I underplayed it. Yeah, obviously my first few like big retweets or comments that I got from, like you said, when you just start on these platforms, you have no idea. You just don't understand how the mechanics work, and like your dopamine baseline for the hedonic treadmill, right? Is like the first time you got 100 likes, you're like, oh my God, like you're like, this is insane. And now if you don't get 100 likes in the first 2 minutes, like you're annoyed, right? So like I think 100% agree with Jack that yeah, I'd say that the first few, those were like really like, but it's because of the reframing. Man. It's just like I love how you frame it. It's like, you realize there are no gatekeepers. It's like, it's completely permissionless. And that's the mayor. Dude, like, honestly, like, I know there's a lot of pump groups and a lot of viral FRE going on like Twitter and all these other platforms. But that type of content is still very meritocratic. Like it still has to be good to get like to last. Like you can get a couple wins, right? Like small wins on shit that isn't very good. But to last, to stay in that game, you got to be good consistently, and that's a pure meritocracy, to be honest.
Yeah.
And,
also, Trung, for you, I'd say without like name dropping and all that stuff, I know like you've shared with us in the DMs and stuff like, oh, so and so, this person everyone listening would have heard of. DM me this thing, and it's less so about them being a famous person. It's more like they appreciated my work, it's like they asked about something I wrote about, and it's like we all know this person. I'm not just talking about Elon Musk, which obviously I've already talked about, but like you've mentioned other people.
No, to think that you're upstream of some of these, like in certain days,
it's crazy.
Like, to think that like Jack loves talking about memes. We talk about memes, right? The idea that you're transferring some information and they are taking it's actually mind-boggling when you think about it.
Yeah. That's one of the realizations, like where you're like, oh, I put something out and I didn't even think this could happen. Like you said, Nassim Taleb retweeting or writing it. That's like, I've just finished reading his stuff. Like I'll give a couple of mine real quick as well. I mean, the one version of that for me was honestly doing this pod. I remember we talked about Kano once, like one of my favorite artists ever. And I got a follow from his manager on Twitter, and I'm like, wait a minute, this guy literally.
Oh, amazing!
I used to have a ringtone when I was 16 years old, where from Kano on a mixtape no one's even heard of, and there's a skit in the middle of it where he literally imitates this guy, and it's again no one even knows who this person is, right? And he's like not even that famous, but for me it meant so much because I was like, oh, this like I was a kid listening to these guys.
Does Kiddo's manager listen to this podcast?
Well, I don't know if he still does, but he has. But anyway, I'll give a couple of mine. Mine is less so about like similar to what Trunk said, like one big moment. It's more like tentpole moments where you realize something. So as you guys said, putting something out, being like, oh, this is actually going to get attention from people that I'm trying to connect with or whatever. The other one is just like when you realize you can do something on your own. So like I'll just give a few examples. The first big one was like, again, from the old Street Vibes days where I was selling stuff online on the side. And I remember making like a goal for myself to make X amount of money. And I got that first amount of money and I basically took a massive risk. I took all of it and bought wholesale fucking basic hoodies, right? Like 24. Yeah, it was like a few grand basically. I remember making like a few, like £1,000 or £2,000, and it took me ages just to get to that. And I remember being like, I'm reinvesting all of this to buy this new thing I've never sold before. There we go. And I remember then basically in a week selling everything and doubling the money. And then that kind of made me realize like, damn, you can actually just buy stuff for this and sell it. Everyone's happy. I remember going to school, selling some at school and then selling it on the rest online. And that feeling, I remember taking my parents out for a dinner at this place called Chili and Spice. I remember texting Jack about it recently. It was
Dad, it's on me.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, it was a Chinese Indian restaurant. They did both. You get your chow mein and chicken tikka masala. Incredible. Whole street, I think, in Walthamstow. Halal food, prawn crackers, and poppadoms, killing it.
Yeah,
but that was one of those things where I'm like, okay, this is something that is going to mean something to me. It's not about the money. It's like I can figure this out and I can get access to a whole big world out there. That was one. The second one.
Wait, hold on. When the check came out, what happened? You're just like, did you grab your dad's hand? It's like, it's on me, Dad.
Oh, 100%.
No,
it was,
did the check come out, or did you go up to the, which one did you do?
You got to pretend to go to the toilets?
Yeah. Did you do that one, or the one where you pretend to go to the toilet and you paid the bill when your dad's like, let me get the bill?
I already got it.
Care of. Hey, I got. Which one did you do?
I don't remember. I was probably the first one, but no, I think it was just more about, that was, I'm not saying that's necessarily a career highlight, but it's one of those things where you're like, oh, this is really cool.
No, but it's the same psychological effect, right? That's the point.
Exactly.
Like
and you internalize a lesson essentially like that you're now taking. The other one was probably, from my Google Suit days to like my favorite job at Google was basically this, where we launched a startup in Europe. That was a really cool moment where I was like, oh, wow, like in a big company, I can do something closer to what I want to do long term. And just having that autonomy within a big company was really, really cool. And then I'll say like at Charity Water for a while, it felt like the dream job for me at that particular moment in time. I remember being there and just being like, well, I'm getting access to all these crazy people. I'm learning from, like, I felt like I'd stopped learning for a while. And it was the first time I was so energized, and we were doing like good in the world where I felt like at that moment, I really wanted that. And so I'd say like being there, feeling like I had ownership of the team I was working with, and directly seeing the impact of my work every day. That feeling is, and that's kind of what I now do, is I moved all the way from a company that I had 100,000 people to 100 people to now just myself. And that's kind of the progression I knew I needed to get back to.
Which company had 100,000 people? Which company was that? That sounds like a pretty big company.
Yeah, exactly.
Are they in the SP 500?
I think it might be, yeah. But anyway, once a week, we got to get it in. But anyway, so I'd say those are a few like tentpole moments where I realized like my hard work could actually translate to something beyond money, and I can actually learn. And that's kind of what I realized. Like there's pros and cons about every approach. And in that moment, I was craving more meaning and more kind of impact. And like what I was doing all day was translating into helping real people. And that was really cool feeling. And it was, we talk a lot about like leverage and stuff. Like that is the leverage of someone who's been working on that, an entrepreneur who basically dedicated themselves for 10, 15 years by that point, built this infrastructure that I could plug into with my skills, and I could multiply, my own impact by 1,000-fold. And that is a really nice feeling. So yeah, that I'd say those were the ones.
I think the takeaway from our 3 examples, just to put a pin on this, is like when you realize that you can affect change in the world, or the world comes to you by your own actions, no gatekeepers. I think that's kind of takeaway. It's like,
yeah,
when you grow up, not everyone's like this, but you know, the high school system kind of puts you in this mindset where like, well, you gotta ask people for permission.
Yeah.
Like this is the way it's always been. Like this is the trajectory.
Follow
you're
the
supposed to
rules,
take.
basically. Yeah.
It's like when you realize that that path is just whatever. It was there for a reason. And maybe it works for the majority of people, but it's like when you realize you can just kind of step off of it and the benefits are actually insane, is I think that's kind of the takeaway here. That's great.
100%. All right, we got a few more here. Jack, whenever you need to go, let us know as well. I know you got stuff going on.
One more for Jack.
I got another 10. Yeah.
Let's do it. So I think Dylan Casey asked this. We kind of talked about this in the last episode, so tell me if we don't need to go over this again. How AI tools for language localization affect podcasters and YouTubers, especially as it relates to advertising.
We covered it. We
kind of covered it last week.
NIA up only is the summary, right?
Up only, yeah. So Dylan, we already talked about it last week, but good question. Okay, let's see. Stuart said, if you had to be a new startup founder today, what would you guys be interested in?
Okay, here's my quick answer. It's like, people talk about product market fit. People always talk about founder market fit.
Yeah.
And I'm a big, I've definitely, I wish I had the mentality. No, I don't wish it, but I'm like, what I would get into is probably very Adams stuff, not bits, like digital world. I do digital stuff. We all do digital stuff. We've actually, but Jack's brought this up in a previous AMA where like we always put this myopic lens of like, great content, like digital stuff, like that's our leverage. But the reality is that the stuff that needs solving now are atoms related, right? It's the energy infrastructure needs to be fixed. And like people doing a lot of space shit, I'd be very interested in doing space, nuclear energy, stuff like that, if I had the temperament for and an aptitude, but I don't. So I think, unfortunately, is like, if this is like a question being like, what kind of opportunities are out there? This seems like potentially a segue into that. I think do hard tech. Like it's stuff that actually changes the world, which unfortunately I'm not doing. And those need solving. And if you have an aptitude for that, those things, because of how hard they are to do, a lot less competition. Like everything that we've talked about, it's easy, right? It's easy to flick on content. It's easy to get the automatic distribution and build an audience and all that stuff. Is like, that's much more replicable than getting into nitty gritty. So I'd say, I think that's worthwhile doing. I just don't have the aptitude for it.
Yeah, great answer. Jack, any thoughts from you, mate? If you were a startup founder today, what would you be interested in?
Start a fish and chip shop.
Yeah.
Local fish and chip shop.
Nashville's finest.
Buy my local pub. Yeah. No, it's like the same answer as Trung, basically. It's like you just fantasize about the total opposite of what you're doing. Like what would it be like if I didn't have to wake up and touch a laptop or go on a computer? And that's like the absolute opposite answer if anybody listens to this podcast. But it has been funny to watch. Like, some of the kids I grew up with, went to trade school out of high school in the UK. So when you're 16 or 17, you go learn to be a plumber or bricklayer or something else. And for like 10 years or so out of school, that was like, it was an okay choice. Like you can get work. And now it's like, those guys are laughing.
They're making money.
I just think like
plumbers are killing it. Roofers.
The ZERP bubble has definitely deflated the opportunities for the liberal arts enjoyers among us.
Jack, you'd be just frying up Mars bars in a fish and chip shop.
I would be, yeah. I always used to joke to Sila, I wanted to open a English cafe on Wall Street. That was my my thing when I was in New York. I was like, I'll do little fry-ups in the morning, and I could do fish and chips at night.
What's a fry-up? What's a fry-up?
Man.
Bacon, egg, sausage, beans, mushrooms,
yeah, we
toast.
Got to pull this up.
Is it in a sandwich?
No.
Okay.
There's a fry-up police.
Pull it up, Jamie. Pull it up, Jamie.
Quick question, Bilal. When you're frying the Mars bar, is it in the same oil batch that you're doing the fish in?
Probably the fries.
The fries. Okay, I was about to say, I'm like,
depends on the chip shop.
are different oil. Yeah. Some are definitely doing it in oil that's 6 months old.
Yeah.
Wait, we asked what a fry-up is. So this is, you'll recognize a good English breakfast.
Oh yeah, it's an English breakfast.
Yeah.
With the baked beans. You can see that in here. I mean, my version has always been that halal version with the beans hash brown vibe. So I didn't actually grow up eating the full one, but yeah, I mean, it's a classic.
Eggs and beans for Bilal and toast.
Little hash
Bro,
brown.
I like baked beans, man. A lot of people don't, and I like, dude, the tomato, the fried tomato. Oh my goodness, dude. Oh my, dude. If somebody just did a hot dog stand of just fried tomatoes, it would crush.
Wait,
Just,
that
no,
would,
it
I
literally
like
fried.
the idea of the English cafe turning into a fish and chip shop, and then just a pub as well, just 3 in 1 on Wall Street.
Yeah,
though.
mate, it'd be sick.
It should
It'd be
look like,
sick.
you know, Top Boy, the cafe in Top Boy.
Yeah,
like
mate.
the classic.
Yeah. Exactly
caf-
that.
just,
Exactly that. Have you done
Milk's
Regency
going
Cafe?
off.
Have you been to Regency?
I haven't, but I know you've mentioned it before. Yeah.
If anybody's seen layer cake.
Oh yeah, I know that one. Yeah, layer cake classic as well.
Mate. Jeez.
Well, can we get the
Regency
quote?
Cafe.
What's the quote from Layer Cake, which is actually the best alpha you could probably get? Is I'm getting the quote from, because it's actually related to a lot of stuff we're talking about careers. Let me see.
When you're born.
Cake. Yeah, you're born. Yeah. Okay, guys. Jack knows exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, here it is, people. This is the answer to every question on the AMA we've already had. So I take back every previous answer about fire, about the best experience, about founder market fit. Here it is. This is my answer to everything in every future AMA question. You're born, you take shit. You get out in the world, you take more shit. You climb a little higher, you take less shit. Till one day you're in the rarefied atmosphere and you forgot what shit even looks like. There you go.
Jeez,
Welcome
look
to the
at
layer
that.
cake, son.
Yeah, welcome to the
Put
layer
that
cake.
on a
Dude.
quote Instagram page, mate. That is
Dude,
beautiful.
there you go.
All right,
There's
beautiful.
your
I love
pod
that.
intro right there too.
There you go. Yeah. I'll just say, yeah, the answer. I think you guys already gave pretty good answers there. I don't think I have too much more to add. I think the only thing I would add to that is really, it's so dependent on what you're trying to get out of it. Like if you're trying to go hard, like Trung, what he described, if you've got aptitude for creating that real world stuff, that's an amazing thing. But that has to be only because you really want to make that much of an impact. You want to go big or go home. You've got less than 10% chance it working. Versus like what I've been more interested in recent years has been like the full ownership of something, feeling the impact of what you're doing, you know, having 80-90% of the business if you can do that, not necessarily following what everyone else is doing. So there's lots of versions of that. Like half the people listening to this are doing stuff like that as well. So it just depends. And for me, that isn't, you know, I don't really want to do at the moment anyway. Maybe in the future it will change. I'm quite happy with the way what I've been doing recently, which is more optimizing for my own lifestyle, things that I care about, versus I need to change the world with a startup. Where I did feel like that in the past, and right now I don't. So maybe it will come back to me. Anyway, really good question, though. Great question. And building on that, Joseph said, which personal skills would you wish doing deep into? He also spelled which with WITCH.
Going.
Wait,
Going
maybe.
deep. Let's go.
Yeah, it must have been autocorrect. So, which personal skill would you want to go deep into and I guess improve?
Okay, so this is go. I like to get better at short form video. I actually do think that I'm obviously I still think TikTok should be banned. Sorry, my boy. I know our boy Zaid disagrees with me on that one, but I mean Zaid could just hop over to Reels or Shorts, probably posting there anyways, right? And
Yeah, he's doing all of them, yeah.
he's got game no matter what. So I think that
And
is
lives too.
Yeah, video is a super valuable skill because listen, eyeballs at the end of the day, right? Text is super dense. I love writing. That's I think still the best information transfer until Neuralink comes. Listen, I'll do brand stuff for Neuralink if you guys want. I'll check. But yeah, I think short form video is a legit skill.
That's a
Or even
good
just
answer.
video in general, man. Like I'd like to get better at video.
Yeah, great answer. Jack, anything coming to mind for you, mate?
Probably just more technical stuff for me. A little code.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Just more working knowledge of that stuff. Like I picked up a good enough understanding being in the agency world, but never did like, you know, hyper technical. Just a working knowledge of that stuff. Like there's a a lad I work with called Traf. I don't know if you guys, I've brought him up a couple of times, but
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
like
Solidity?
incredible designer.
No, Traff
he's like
he does a design. He's a
lot
designer,
of
right?
front end
Yeah, he's
stuff.
really
And Jalil, those guys both have like different corners of the like technical spectrum covered, but are also incredible visual designers. And that's like just being, I think, in environments where you're required to learn both sides of that. Yeah, just mega powerful skill set. So
Would you
just
want to?
more of
Would
that.
learning Solidity be useful for you? Like, would it be worth your time or not really?
Not really, I don't think.
Okay.
I mean, and also like I think unless I say this stuff, but it's also with the caveat of like I've had plenty of opportunity to do it, but I'm not like geared that way. So it makes way more sense to find people to work with that are good at that.
Your version of that in there.
And what is Solidity for people that may not know?
So it's just how you write smart contracts on Ethereum. Like
Okay.
very like it's for a lot of people, I think in terms of its complexity relative to other languages they learn, it's not that complicated, but obviously it's incredibly high stakes because you're dealing with actual value transfer. So a lot of people have actually shout out to Tom Hurst. I think he listens to this. He just deployed a little set of resources of how to learn Solidity. So
Okay.
maybe we can
Shout out.
plug that in the notes. And yeah, just knowing how that stuff works makes you a better designer too. Like you don't have to be able to do it, but you just have to understand it.
It's like Elon's factory at Tesla. Get the designers right next to engineers. You're not working in a vacuum. You need to know what your
Nobody
specs
is, man.
are
Nobody
implicated.
Is.
There we go.
That's a
Well,
great-
Bilal.
Yeah, I think those two. I mean, I feel those were two that I definitely have thought about as well. I think short form video, like you said, I would say video generally, like you said, is definitely an interesting one. Beyond like we're doing video in air quotes right now, but it's not. We're not optimizing for video at all. We're recording.
We're pretty
on
good though. I
Zoom.
think we're pretty good on video, guys.
Yeah, there we go. We got the setup. We got the lights on
Elgatos
right now.
are all blasting
you
right now.
you
There
actually
we go.
know what? Let me bring up
On
our
and
boy
off.
George Mack when he talked about Chris Williamson. When taking the lessons for speech for public speaking lessons.
Oh, yeah.
Respect.
Dude, I
Big
would. You know
ROI
what?
on that.
Like
should
in
do
my
it.
mind, I'm probably way better public speaking than I am, right? In my mind. No,
Oh, you're
seriously.
good. You're good.
No,
You're
but I
good.
mean,
you're
like,
natural.
But you
communicator,
clearly
yeah.
can get better. Like
Yeah,
way
I think
better.
anyone
right?
can get better, really. But yeah, no, that's good. I will say video. I think right now, I think beyond short form video is the thing to learn right now if you're trying to do video. Like we said, that's why I just did the last two episodes of 3 episodes were on Collabs were with Zaid and Callaway, both short form, because I was interested in learning about it. So they were breaking down like everything from writing a script to editing, like sharing a screen, everything. Very interesting. But that's just what is very relevant today. I think just video is the ultimate storytelling, right? It's like sight, sound, motion. It's every layer of communication. And the short form is today, but like video storytelling is forever. Like you're going to make movies with video. You're going to make YouTube videos with video. So I 100% agree with that one. If I was trying to learn anything else, it would be kind of doubling down on that. I also think that the leverage you have on a place like YouTube at the moment or TikTok is where long term you're going to be able to create value, and there's a repository of videos on YouTube. So I think it's worth the investment because your time and energy will actually be exponentially returned. Yeah, so I don't know. And he said personal, so I would actually just add to that is more like writing for me is something I've always written. Like I enjoy writing. I don't do it as consistently as I would like to, but that would be another one of just like kind of getting back into that would be a nice thing. And then the last one is something on the health side, because he said personal. It's just like I'm in the last like year, I've done more gym, weightlifting, etc. than I've done consistently any other time in my life. But I'd put myself at like a 2 out of 10. Like I'm still very early in that and really going advanced. And doing that stuff consistently would make a massive difference to my life long term. So mainly because of injuries and stuff, I can't fully do a lot of those things. And the shape I was in, I wasn't able to do it. But just to be able to learn the ins and outs of not just weightlifting, but the mechanics of the body, flexibility.
This is a great answer.
Nutrition.
Yeah.
nutrition. I would actually say my knowledge of and execution nutrition has been pretty good for a long time, but the body stuff, like, you know, basically like yoga, like every version of like
I will
flexibility
triple
and
down
stuff,
on this. I will triple down on the flexibility stuff. Like, I'll
because
give you
you
an
just
example.
feel incredible over the
Well,
long
think
run.
about the range of movements that we don't do, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Jack probably knows.
Especially sitting
Jack,
on a desk all day, man. It's crazy.
100%. Jack, do you still have a personal trainer?
Yeah.
Okay, so Bilal and I are probably more self-directed. Like, you know, I go for runs and do the same like 10 workouts, right? Like body weight stuff like that. But that means I'm only doing those 10 range of motions. Whereas a guy that probably personal trainer or physio would be like, Trung, like, look at this movement. You probably haven't done that movement in 5 years. But I'm telling you right now, that movement's going to come up and you're going to blow something out because you haven't been using that. This is why you actually need physio. You need like going to physio is something I probably should be doing, but I'm not. And to Bilal's point is like, especially if you're sitting all day.
Yeah, yeah. And so, yeah, I'd say the mobility.
Well, you're standing, aren't you?
Like
Because I've checked the
Oh, no,
price of
I don't know.
Bitcoin.
Yeah.
You guys haven't noticed, but the last couple episodes I've been sitting.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, I
because
did realize that. But
Yeah.
you're
Ah.
standing
I have
in
a good,
space.
I have a good
so-
reason though. I have a good reason because I started recording my solo pod and I didn't want to worry about this mic setup anymore. And I look like an idiot when I'm standing at the current setup. So sorry, people. If I reverse jinxed us to 69K, then
We might
then
be.
I had to
we might be
apologize.
there,
Well,
yeah.
I think Sailor bought 5,400 Bitcoin this month. So we're
bullish,
getting there.
bullish.
Huge.
He's
huge.
trying to keep it afloat, man.
All right, how many more we got?
I guess
I know Jack's had a buggy.
last. I guess we can just do one last one.
Let's power through. How many got? I know Jack's had a run. How many
I
more we
think
got?
probably this might be including the meme one if you wanted to cover that. But this one was from E. Don't know E's full name, but what are some good techniques you use to stay focused on one goal project? How to avoid the shiny object syndrome? Actually,
C4.
kind of.
Are you about to say Trump?
Incredible. Take pre-workout for
let me-
everything, not health advice. Not health advice.
I hate giving advice so much, but I will say this: no is this. The answer is no. Like you just learning how to say no. It's like it's hard, man. Especially, dude. Jack must get hit up so much, but I would say the best thing to do to focus on things is just like being comfortable saying no. Just say no.
Facts.
Got to have
That
that.
is
one.
right.
You got
It
your heads
sucks,
down.
right?
We talked about
It's
this
so
over email.
hard, right? We joked
My
about it
head's down.
before, right? And like, listen, a lot of people I'm sure listening to this, maybe not a lot, but a lot of people do ping me like, hey, can you help with XYZ? Do you want to do XYZ? I give the same answer every time. It's like, listen, I'm focused on these two things. I
My
appreciate
head's
the
down
shout out.
right now, right?
Yeah,
Trump?
my head is
Heads down.
like in the table. If you saw where my head is right now, it's like you'd be like,
My
yo,
head
you-
is in the arena right
yeah,
now.
Yeah,
head
exactly.
is in the arena. That's my advice. Just say no. Just gotta say no. You gotta be vicious with
Mm.
because what you're doing is when you're saying no, like, let's talk about the psychology of it. You feel bad. I think a lot of it is you're feeling bad, like you're letting someone down. But the thing that I've just completely warped is like, people have every right to ask. You can ask. I have every right to say no. That's it. That's it, right?
Yeah.
You have. There's no reason why you get purchased on my time. Like, there's just none. Especially if I have a kid, you don't get purchased on my time.
Yeah.
Like, and it's not an asshole thing to do. It's like time is the most valuable commodity in the world. So yeah, that was the biggest unlock for me, was like not feeling bad saying no. That's it. That's my answer.
Love that. Jack, anything else? You're very focused on doing many things. Well, doing one or two things very, very well. So anything that's helped you there?
Trunks, I think, is the ultimate one. That's like the common thing across everything. And then maybe this idea of some measurable quality or characteristic that doesn't depend on an externality. Like the idea of, maybe this is not answering the question really, but visualized value, for example, I was able to stay on that because I had set this constraint that I could just hit over and over and over again, regardless of who is responding to it. It's like focus not depending on inspiration, right? Like focus being something that you can turn up and produce because you have the parameters already set. What they call it, leading indicators versus lagging indicators. You know that, like, I made 100 phone calls, not I got 2 leads.
Yeah.
That's not the best example, but you count the things that you have under control,
Yeah,
or
like
you do the things
inputs
that are under
versus
your
outputs
control.
is another way of describing it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's again a basic answer, but it is say no to the stuff that is just going to accrue all of this debt and responsibility and mental toil for you, and you can kind of unwind that sometimes by having something that you could just say, oh, I got that done. Like, imagine for, you guys have a different version of that than I do. It's like record the pod, write the email, get it done. Next week, we're on to the next one, find a guest, whatever. So, yeah, that's specific to our situations, but feels to me like engineering something that you can hit when you need to make progress is definitely a helpful thing to have.
I just want to add, because based on what Jack said, I do want to add a little bit nuance to my answer. It's like, it's not specifically when I'm saying the no part is like, I'm not saying my time is more valuable than yours. I'm saying my time to me is more valuable to me. So you know what I mean? It's like, but I think that nuance is important when you're saying you don't ever let somebody make you feel bad for saying no for you control your time, because I think that happens a lot. I think there's a lot, you could tell for a lot of these techniques, like, dude, it's classic sales 101, right? People, first of all, technique is they'll hit you with a huge ask first. Hey, can we get a coffee? And then you'll say no. They're like, okay, how about a phone call? Like, they're trying to game, like,
tapering
I
it
know
down,
what's happening, right? It's like, listen, I know what's going on here. So I'm just going to make it very clear. It's like, my time, because I don't have a lot of it for my life circumstances, is extremely important to me. So I think kind of what Jack's saying is like, you should be able to frame your life. Frame your schedule in a way, or frame the way you're working, where you actually get to say no without feeling bad, because that's what's happening. People are trying to manipulate you into feeling bad. I'm not saying not everyone is negative in this way, but when people do ask, like, they're doing the standard negotiation ask stuff, right?
Yeah. And I'll just add one last thing, because Jack brought up a good point. This might be relevant to us, the way we are in our current lives. We're recording this during the week, during the daytime. Most people can't do that already. So the first step is being able to get control of your time in the first place. So if you're in a job, you're not going to have the same freedom, and that is completely understandable. Like, we've all done that ourselves as well. So I think being able to control what you can control there, and accepting your current situation. So like, when I was in a job, I was being pulled all over the place as well, being like, hey, can you do this project? Can you work on this? And depending on your situation, you're trying to do more. You're trying to, like, let's say you're in a job, you're trying to get promoted. You're trying to show, oh, I did all these extra things. Like, and the first important thing there is like really clearly defining what is actually necessary versus not. And if whatever your goal is, if your goal there is to get promoted because you need the extra money, or you need the title, or you need whatever, like, get very specific on that. And like, in my case, I would have spoken to my manager and said, this is where I'm trying to get to. This is where I'm currently at. I'm being pulled all over the place. People are making me do these things that I don't think are actually driving the business forward, etc. And like, just being really, it's like writing, like, it's the editing of the writing. It's like, you've got a whole page of stuff. You need to take out 60 to 80% of it. And it's the title needs to be brought down. So that is your work there. Look at your calendar. That is equivalent of an essay you've written. Think of it like that. And you're like, okay, I've got all these meetings. And like, just reflecting on that and be like, did I actually need to be in that meeting? No. All right. If not, like, let me see if I need to go to the next one. Let me ask them next time for a clear agenda. Like, so those are the ways you can, even in a job, start to do that. It also depends where you are. If you're in a law firm, you can't do that. The culture is very different, but I think that's an important
You made such a great
part.
point, man. I know Jack's got a bogey. We probably wrap up here, but man, this has been such a good AMA, because you guys keep adding nuance to everything. Like, it makes me think, it's like, dude, you nailed it, man. It's like, just a lot of people, that's the only thing to focus. Have full control of your time. That's the reality. If you want to be able to do deep work, can you sit down for 4 hours? Like, up until this fall with my child, I wasn't able to, but now he's in school a little bit longer. But because he had purchase of my time, because of course I'm going to give him purchase.
Yeah, and that's your obligation. You need to, so everyone has a version of a kid or whatever that is.
Well, work. Kid, like you said, you used to work at Google. You full agency life is like, our charity water. I think, I'd say those two things. I think those are two pretty good answers. They sound pretty generic, but it's like, the one way to focus is to have as much control of your calendar as possible. And that's difficult to do. But if focus really does matter to you, or you want to do deep work, maybe you need to reassess what is happening in your life, maybe professionally or in terms of relationships, that's taking this calendar away from you. Is it a friend that is so freaking demanding, that is continually putting you into onto their calendar and onto their schedule? Maybe that you have to change the tenure of that relationship. Is it a work job, like Bilal said? You're editing the calendar. You're editing it, right? It's like, do I need this meeting? Because if I take this one meeting, guess what? Just open up a 6-hour block for me. I can actually focus, right? This is, man, I can't believe how
That's
much
it.
alpha is in this episode right now.
There we go. There we go. All right, we should call it here though. That was great.
Yeah.
To chat to you boys as always. Hope you guys enjoyed that. We'll be back next week with a regular episode. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Share it with your friends, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.
Peace out, guys.